Sibukazi, good morning to you. I must say I'm quite excited. This could be the 11th one for Andy Burkett. The leaders are yet to take to the water, yes?
Good morning, Nicole. Yes, like you've said, it's been a three-day affair here from Pietermaritzburg to Blue Lagoon here in Durban. And of course, in stage one, we saw Andy Burkett claiming day one and claiming day two again, the 10-time winner of the Dusi Canoe Marathon. And in the ladies' race, we saw defending K1 champion Christy McKenzie also coming in first on day one and on day two. So we are tipped that Andy Burkett might be making history here today. But to tell us a little bit more about that, I have Dave McLeod, who is a spokesperson of the My Life Dusi Canoe Marathon. Dave, thank you so much for talking to me. Firstly, I'm just going to start with the conditions that we've had. Let's talk about the water supply that you've received. Just tell me a little bit more about that and shed more light to our viewers about that.
The last couple of years have been tough for the Dusi because it's been a drought cycle. The La Nina, El Nino cycle has not been good for the Dusi, but we've had one of our wettest summers in 13 years here, so we have had waters in the river. And the big plus for the paddlers, every year we have a negotiation with the Department of Water Affairs and Mgani Water, and they have to do an ecological flush of the river. So these guys are grinning as they come in because there's been 25 cubic meters per second of water coming out of Inanda Dam. And the first 2 days were medium low and it's hard and it's hot, but day three is a celebration of canoeing because they've got 25 cubes of full river and clean water, and it's just, you can see the grins on their faces. It's perfect, really good.
Now let's talk about the changes that were made this year due to COVID-19 and the second wave. No spectators, no vendors, no camping. Now, how has it been like for the paddlers?
It's been very different. A lot of these people come back every year to do it. You'll see a lot of people have done 10, 20 or 30 of them, so it's been very different. We've had to keep spectators entirely off the course. Nobody's on the bridges, nobody's on the banks cheering. Your seconding crew, which is a technical support crew, they've got to stay at an arm's distance. You'll see the athletes behind me are masking up the minute they come off the water. They've got to socially distance. Nobody's been congregating to camp or associate. But the interesting thing is, it's had a very strange positive effect. Because if you take an event which has got an incredible legacy, which goes through such a beautiful part of the countryside and connects so many communities, if you strip away all those extras, you then focus on the athlete and the environment they find themselves in. And so many people have come back and they've said, wow, I've suddenly realized just how beautiful this is, what a special challenge it is to me personally, now that we've stripped away some of those extras which have just gradually accumulated over the 70 years since this race started.
Yeah, we spoke about how it feels like we're going back to the 70s. Can you just shed a little bit more light about why we say we feel like we're going back to the 70s there?
This is the 70th anniversary of the very, very first Dusi. Now, the first Dusi was won by a person that many people will know because he was Dr. Ian Player. He's one of our greatest conservationists, and every time we go to a reserve and we enjoy the wildlife, it's largely as a result of what Dr. Ian Player did. He was part of the group of 8 men. They were mad. They were put together in teams of 2, and they left Alexandra Park in Pietermaritzburg just before Christmas in 1951, and he was the only one that made it back. So he was the first winner. He broke the rules because you had to finish in 2. So he was technically breaking the rules, but he was recorded as the first winner. His partner decided he'd had enough and he left home to have Christmas with his family, and he came down on his own. And Dr. Ian Player was such a massive part of this race every year, but that was 70 years ago. And I think if he was to look down and see the way canoeing has spread into every community, how the youngsters in the valley that he went through have now embraced canoeing as a sport that they love and they champion, and they've got their own heroes like Tulani and Banjuan and Sponelo Kwela, then I think he would really be smiling down on us now.
I'm sure he would. Now let's talk about Andy Burkett's 10-time Dusi Canoe Marathon winner and about to break a world record should he come through as a winner today. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, I mean, Sibukazi, you choose the word should. I mean, he's got an 18-minute lead. Nobody has an 18-minute lead coming into the final day. What he's done has been mercurial, and I'm choosing those words carefully. So unless an aeroplane falls out of the sky, there's nothing that's going to stop him. It will be his 11th win. The record for the total number of wins is 15, held by Graham Popelis, who's the Dusi king, and he owned this race in the 70s and the 80s. But it is going to be Andy's 7th consecutive win, which nobody has ever done. Andy used to live in Pietermaritzburg, and the Dusi was on his doorstep, so he could specialise. But he's now married and raising a family down in East London, so he doesn't even train here anymore. So he comes in from the outside, training with people down in East London, and then is able to put in a performance which is, to be honest, 15% better than anybody else. And he's busy beating Hank McGregor, who's a 15 times world champion.
I'm sorry, Dave, I'm going to have to cut you off. They're running out of time. Well, that was Dave telling us just that Andy Burkett is really the man to be looking out for, as he's got an 18-minute lead and could be making history as he comes through today. But we will chat to Andy later and just find out how his Dusi Canoe Race Marathon has been this year.
Thank you for that, Sipokazi. It is quite disappointing that we have run out of time. She's at the Dusi Canoe Marathon in Durban. Of course, they are celebrating their 70th anniversary. Favourites there are Andy Burkett and Christy McKenzie. I'm excited to see what's going to come at the end of that.